Weezer were a revelation for 90s alternative rock. Heavy metal and comic books were how Rivers Cuomo was raised. Kiss and the X-Men were the gods that he praised. And while Kurt Cobain also loves 70s arena rock and Marvel comics, he never admitted to it in song. Devo and They Might Be Giants had set the groundwork, but Weezer proved definitively that nerds could indeed rock, as well as saving their hair metal guitar solo from obsolescence. On the band's first album, Cuomo wove tales of unraveling mental health, absent fathers, and romances never attempted, told through the lens of personal minutiae and pop cultural obsession. Intimate and arena rock in equal measures, this is the story of how Weezer made the Blue Album. Rivers Cuomo arrived in LA in March 1989, 18 at the time and guitarist for prog metalers Avant Garde. They were following the path many a fame-entranced metal band had travelled through the late 80s. They moved to Los Angeles, the Sunset Strip, and hopefully megastar status. But as a lot of those hairsprayed wannabes quickly found out, mainstream success wasn't assured. After arriving, they changed their name to Zoom. But a couple of shows later, the band was over. We fell apart really quickly. It's really harsh. Just getting out of high school and moving to a crappy one-room apartment in LA with 50,000 roaches. 5 guys in one room with no money. It was really hard. Some people just gave up and went back to Connecticut. That's when I got the crazy idea to start to sing and write songs. Instead of just being a guitar player, I started to do that on my own. By the time of Zoom's demise, Cuomo was working at Tower Records in Anaheim, and later the Sunset Strip, and was getting a musical education. He'd grown up a metalhead, coaxed in by Kiss. I want you! I want you! I want you! Before devouring Quiet Riot. Metallica. And uber virtuoso Yngwie Malmsteen. However, at his new vocation, he was introduced to music beyond long-haired guitar fetishists.
They say I got brains, but they ain't doing me no good. 'Cause everybody knows if they do.
He also found an instant affinity for Nirvana's 1990 single, Sliver.
Mom and Dad went to a show.
It's like, oh my god, this is so beautiful to me, and I identify with it so much. Hearing him sing about Mom and Dad and Grandpa Joe, these personal family issues, in a really heartbreaking, kind of innocent, childlike way. Over these straightforward chords in a major key. But then the distortion kicks in, and he starts screaming. Shit, that's what I want to do. Cutting his hair and abandoning metal, in 1991 Cuomo formed short-lived alternative groups, Fuzz, and 60 Wrong Sausages. Both also collapsing within a couple of gigs. Cuomo felt that before rushing into another band, he should take on what he called the 50 Song Project. Simply write 50 songs, with help from former 60 Wrong Sausages drummer Pat Wilson, along with guitarist Jason Cropper. The LA scene was no longer the hair metal playground it was a couple of years earlier. Now it was dominated by the likes of Celebrity Skin, Jane's Addiction, as well as various no-name grunge acts. In this climate, Cuomo worried about his turncoat status. I wanted to create a body of work before I put my next band together. There was so much anxiety about authenticity at the time, and we'd all just made this radical transformation from being metalheads to being alternative. You didn't want anyone to find out what you looked like 12 months ago. But by the end of January 1992, 29 songs in, and with Wilson, Cropper and friend Matt Sharp on bass, formed a new band. Cuomo and Sharp moved in together in March, their house from then on becoming the band's headquarters and rehearsal space. Their first show was in Hollywood that same month, closing for Keanu Reeves' band Dogstar.
Isabel is a mother miracle.
As packed as the venue had been, by the new band's 1 AM stage time, few had stuck around, an ominous portent of things to come. Forced to pick a name when booking the show, Cuomo chose Weezer after the nickname his father had given his asthmatic son. Though the rest of the band were less enthused with the name, it provoked reactions. Often when giving out flyers, their name would provoke hearty guffaws. Eschewing the grunge that surrounded them, the idea for this group was, why not the Beach Boys, but loud? And while their close harmonies made them stand out, it didn't endear them to the LA scenesters. Most shows would be attended solely by the same 5 people, one being future Jackass star, Johnny Knoxville. We would just play, and if we got a following, we did. And if we didn't, we didn't. And we didn't. It was pretty much no expectations for anything. We just basically didn't have anything better to do. And we all sucked. Me especially. But what the band did have going for them was a clutch of future classics, as well as soon to be discarded tracks like the so very Pixies' Paperface. They already had several songs ready for their debut, including Undone the Sweater Song, and My Name is Jonas.
My name is Jonas. I'm carrying the wheel.
But it was another song that was taking their sets to a different level. Say It Ain't So hadn't been part of Cuomo's 50-song project. In fact, its opening chord sequence dated back to 1988, Avant-Garde, and their song, Renaissance. Strumming along to it in the Weezer house, Cuomo latched on to how emotive the chords were. And sought to find a subject worthy of them. And a particularly tender spot for him was his relationship with his father. My parents split up when I was 4, and I miss my father very much. I just thought he was the coolest thing ever. He was my hero, but he was gone when I was growing up. So I think I was drawn to that subject of fathers. It was always very emotional for me. From the first album with Say It Ain't So, I was already exploring my feelings about it. Cuomo had seen his father 3 times since he'd split. But given that his new band's name came from how his dad continued to address letters to him, even into his adulthood, there were still some feelings percolating. Cuomo's beloved Sliver had in its own serrated way mourned the temporary loss of parental figures. The tact Say It Ain't So takes is more nuanced, helped by the fact it was provoked by a formative event for him. When he was 16, he found a beer in the family fridge. And associated this with his father, whom Rivers believed left due to his rampant alcoholism. So Rivers' unsettled response to this alcoholic beverage was that he instantly felt that his stepfather, Stephen, was going down the same road. Due to this, he was terrified of alcohol and its potential destructive effects, and so didn't take his first sip of beer until the age of 21, a little before he wrote the song, and the terror is infused within. Starting with the chorus's title phrase, Cuomo brewed a tale of parental panic,
Your truck is a heartbreaker.
flavoured with shorthand and real-life detail. So after avoidance through roughhousing with his brother, all these various forms of angst are exhumed in its bridge. A letter to his father listing their history and Cuomo's fears.
Like father, stepfather, the sun is drowning in the flood.
Before it reaches the point where words don't matter, and only a Brian May indebted guitar solo can truly express his ancient feelings. But here's the thing, as much as his emotions in that moment were clear and bubbling with possible familial fallout, the whole song is based on an assumption that turned out not to be true. I'm kinda mortified that a lot of Say It Ain't So, as powerful as it is and as true as it is based on a misunderstanding. The root of it is this photograph I have of my dad and my mum, where he's wearing a sleeveless undershirt and smoking a cigar and holding a Heineken. He looks so intimidating. My brother and I grew up looking at this photo, and somehow we got the idea in our head that he was an alcoholic and a violent guy, and that's why he left us. Years later, I was talking to my mum about it, and she said, he wasn't an alcoholic. He didn't even drink or smoke. He was like a Zen Buddhist guy. We were just goofing around in that picture. Those were just props. An early version of the track was recorded in August 1992 as part of what became known as the Kitchen Tape Demo, seeing as the drums were recorded in the Weezer House kitchen. Pat Wilson has said that around this time, the few music journalists that wrote about their shows compared Say It Ain't So to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and with the demo versions more obviously John Frusciante under the bridge guitar work, it is understandable. It soon became a set highlight, impressing not only the faithful five, but newcomers to the world of Weezer. Ironically, Jason Cropper gave me a Weezer flyer at Club Lingerie, so my girlfriend at the time and I went to see them at the Coconut Teaser. I wasn't super impressed, but when they got to Say It Ain't So, I was like, this is a cover, right? There's no way a local band could write a song this good. Cuomo had set a hard limit of a year for Weezer to secure a record deal, with the intention of accepting a scholarship offer to study English literature at Berkeley in autumn 1983 if the band remained a non-starter. But as Weezer continued playing around LA, major label A&R men kept showing up, buying the band dinners, and talking deals. For the most part, Weezer weren't the band they wanted. They wanted Green Day.
Welcome to paradise.
But in June 1993, Green Day had signed to Reprise, and only one label was still interested in the consolation prize, Weezer. So they signed to Geffen's sublabel, DGC. Cuomo held off Berkeley, and they began work on their debut. Initially, the band wanted to record their debut themselves, but Geffen wanted a sure hand guiding such an unknown quantity, due to a recent purchase of the Cars' greatest hits, and the realization that their power pop sounds had decent overlap. The band chose to go with Cars leader Rick Ocasek, because his wife Polina Poroskova was pregnant, and he needed to stay close. Ocasek invited the band to New York to record at Electric Lady Studios in August and September 1983. The majority of the album is formed of tales of romantic misadventure, of crushes and romances, but mostly the messy breakups, and the often no-chill jealousy of Rivers Cuomo. The album's track order shows this beautifully, moving from the unreasonable and possessive No One Else to the Why Have You Left Me lament of the world has turned and left me here. In listing prerequisites for his ideal girl, No One Else at the time felt like an unsavory joke between friends. but now reeks of unchecked misogyny.
When I'm away, she puts her makeup on the shelf.
Epic closer Only in Dreams bypasses the relationship altogether.
But when we wait, it's all erased.
Cuomo preferring the flawless fantasy than the uncontrollable reality.
So it seems only true.
While the number one source of inspiration for me was always romantic conflict, I just found myself in one crazy destructive relationship after another, and after a while it just started to feel repetitive. It was like I keep hurting myself and somebody else in the exact same way. There's got to be a better way here. That was one of my means of stimulating my creativity. Another unattempted romance song was Undone, the Sweater Song. Similar to Radiohead's Creep, it dwells in the inability to make a connection due to one's own awkwardness, shown ably in the faltering verses.
On me, baby, goddamn, I am.
Tom York wallows in drunken self-hate. Meanwhile, Cuomo's social incompetence causes him serious psychological distress. His peace of mind unraveling like the central metaphor. It's a sad song, disguised by the sweatiness of it all. This Scenester Chatter, featuring Sharp, Weezer roadie and unofficial fifth member Carl Koch, and Weezer superfan Michael Allen, was a late stage addition. Originally, Koch had assembled a 15-minute pinballing movie sample collage to represent the love-deprived psychosis, but Gethin balked at the expense of licensing the many voice clips. The cycling riff, however, was an unknowing callback to Cuomo's past. The Sweater Song was the first Weezer song I ever wrote, back in 1991. I was trying to write a Velvet Underground type song, because I was super into them. And I came up with that guitar riff. It wasn't until years after I wrote it that I realised it's almost a complete rip-off of Welcome Home Sanitarium by Metallica. It just perfectly encapsulates Weezer to me. You're trying to be cool like Velvet Underground, but your metal roots just pump through unconsciously. Less unconscious are the references of In the Garage, as well as shouting out his favourite members of Kiss.
I've got Ace Frehley, I've got Peter Criss,
Cuomo also brags about his geekery of D&D.
I've got Dungeon Master's Guide,
And the X-Men.
I've got Kitty Pryde and Nightcrawler too.
A bizarre gambit for a 90s group who wanted to seem cool, though hidden by the wall of distortion guitars.
In the garage, I feel safe.
The song recalls the Beach Boys in my room and its theme of safety through isolation.
In my
Aspects of the California Surf Rockers season the album, especially Sharp's falsetto.
Somebody's honey is drowning my icebox.
And the barbershop harmony breakdown on Surf Wax America.
Your undertow is strengthening my soul.
One lesser known influence for Cuomo was hip hop. While his vegetarian rap rock record under the moniker Vegetarists has sadly been lost to time, what still exists is a demo of Cuomo making his way through Ice Cube's The Bomb.
I make the beats and make the breaks and make the rhymes that make you shake, make you burn. Ice Cube never caught in the middle. I make the beats and make the breaks and make the rhymes, make you shake, make you burn. Ice Cube never caught in the middle.
And his one-man Beastie Boy flow on the bridge of Buddy Holly. Hip-hop slang also peppers the song's lyrics.
What's with these homies dissing my girl?
The song itself a defense of Cuomo's Korean friend, Chung Hee, whom the rest of the band made fun of.
Why do they got
The defense of his friend is undermined by one shockingly misjudged line. Another product of pop cultural fixation, the original chorus name-checked Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire instead of the titular bespectacled rocker, and US sitcom royalty. But despite its flawless 2-second guitar solo, candied harmonies, and earworm chorus, Cuomo wanted to leave it off the album. However, it was saved by their producer. We thought Buddy Holly was a novelty. We were leaning towards not including it at all. But Rick said we'd be stupid to leave it off the album. We'd come into the studio in the morning and find these little pieces of paper with doodles on them. We want Buddy Holly. By the end of the sessions, the band realized that Jason Cropper wasn't working out. His girlfriend was pregnant, had come to New York unannounced, and the stress was getting to him. On one occasion, he went to the roof of Electric Lady to have a cathartic screaming session. In the end, it was felt that Cropper wasn't as into this as much as the rest of the band, so was let go. A decision Cropper later admitted was the right call. Brian Bell was inducted into the band as new guitarist after he was able to give a suitably nerdy answer to the question, "Who is your favourite Star Wars character?" He said Hammerhead. Though he was flown out to New York to provide vocal harmonies, he doesn't play guitar on the album, nor does Cropper. The last day of recording, Rivers called me up and said, "Jason's not going to be in the band anymore, so I have to redo all his parts." I said, "Why don't you just keep the guitar tracks you've got? Because it's done." And he said, "No, I have to do all his parts over again. Don't worry, it won't take too long." So I said, okay. We went back in and he did all the guitar parts in one day, and they were perfect. The album ended up untitled, though due to its cover, it forevermore became known as the Blue Album, as an additional nod to his newfound heroes. The now infamous cover was a recreation of a cut-price Beach Boys hits compilation, titled Do It Again, that Cuomo had, and not a rip-off of the Feelies' Crazy Rhythms album, as many thought. Early ideas to replicate the Beach Boys' striped shirts, and to all grow mustaches, were abandoned before the final photo. Perhaps the most recognizable image of the band. What's interesting now is how Cuomo is not wearing his trademark Buddy Holly glasses, and his hair is an irregular bowl cut. The night before, I went to some random salon and said, "Give me a haircut," and that's what they gave me. It totally sucks. But now that's me for eternity in every meme. Geffen had little faith in Weezer. Though the album was finished by the end of September 1993, its release was constantly being pushed back. Supposedly, the label didn't want this new album to run up against their other big alternative release, Sonic Youth's experimental Jet Set, Trash and No Star. However, due to Kim Gordon's pregnancy, they both ended up released the same day, May 10th, 1994. In addition to this, the label hoped that the record would accrue word-of-mouth buzz, and so didn't release a single. Early reviews were so-so, and sales were low. Within a month, the Blue Album had taken up residence in record store bargain bins. It wasn't until a couple of radio stations, including Seattle 107.7, The End, and Los Angeles K-Rock, started playing Undone the Sweater Song, and other modern rock stations followed suit, that Geffen started putting some money behind Weezer. The Sweater Song was released as a single in late June, and the band were given the budget for a music video. Perhaps due to his thrash roots, Cuomo was opposed to the idea of a video, so didn't want anything too flashy. Skateboard cinematographer Spike Jones, who'd previously made the videos for Sonic Youth's 100% and Beastie Boys' Sabotage, was called in after he was the only pitch they heard that didn't feature an actual sweater. Spike Jones was a friend of ours from way back. I remember telling Spike we just want to do a straight performance video, but in a blue room, like the cover of the album. That was not his thing. He took a minute to think about it and called me back and saying, "Okay, a straight performance video in a blue room, but with dogs." With this video, Weezer confirmed themselves as a band like no other. They weren't a self-serious grunge band, nor a hyperactive pop-punk group. They wore glasses, had bad hair, and didn't particularly look like rock stars. And because of this, they were launched from the bargain bin to MTV's buzz bin. The Blue Album entered the Billboard 200, and the Sweater Song reached number 57 on the Hot 100. Their profile was heightened further when they put out the video for Buddy Holly 3 months later. Again with Jones, the director transported the Weezer Boys into nostalgic 70s sitcom Happy Days. What today might look like a whole load of green screen is all simply expert cutting and clever blocking. Such was its ubiquity that Microsoft included it as a QuickTime file on the Windows 95 installation disk. Not that the band understood what that meant. At the time, the very idea that you could watch a video on a computer was like madness. I remember being really mad at Geffen Records for putting that video on Windows 95 because I didn't understand how promotion worked. But I came to find out it was basically one of the biggest coups of all time. I'm an idiot, basically. Music video based success was a double-edged sword. In one way, it was good that people now cared about Weezer. They were now packing out shows and finally earning money from their music. However, the music press were relentless. More than once, Weezer would be referred to as the Stone Temple Pixies due to their loud, quiet grunge pop. Meanwhile, the British press speculated they had been manufactured by Geffen to capitalize on grunge's unexpected success. Hilarious considering how little the label cared before the Sweater Song had caught on. A March 1995 profile in Rolling Stone was particularly damaging to Cuomo, not only sketching him out to be an awkward recluse who can't be reasoned with nor interviewed, but confirming what the music press had hinted at elsewhere. His band might be popular, but they definitely weren't cool. I thought we were going to be the next Nirvana, that we were going to be taken very seriously as an angst-filled rock band, and I was completely shocked and surprised and disappointed when we put the record out to find that the press story was, "This is a band of geeks, Revenge of the Nerds." That story had never occurred to me, but it was universal around the world. That's what everyone said about us, so I guess it must be true. I just don't fit in, and I don't even realize it. Put me in the wider society, and I stand out as a misfit. Coming into 1995, the Blue Album had sold over 1 million copies in the US. Weezer were the music video band, and Cuomo worried that it was Spike Jonze' wacky ideas that had gotten the band famous, and not his power pop songcraft. When Buddy Holly won Best Alternative Video at the 1995 VMAs, he was unsettled further. It means nothing to me. It's like getting awarded for something you have no interest in. It's something I wasn't really involved in beside lip syncing. It wasn't really an artistic endeavor for me. If we'd gotten an award for the record, or a song, it could have meant more to me. I mean, of course, our success is due to that video. The album's last single was Say It Ain't So, released in May 1995. In a move to combat the goofy video band allegations, the clip for Say It Ain't So was instead directed by Sophie Muller, and showed them where it started, in the garage at the Weezer house, complete with improvised carpet soundproofing and posters of Cuomo's favourite rock crew, Kiss. It didn't do anywhere near as well as their previous 2 singles, but with its intense lyrical purge and air guitar-worthy crunch, it has gradually become their signature song. In total, Weezer toured promoting the Blue Album pretty much non-stop for 15 months, moving from supporting Material Issue, Lush and Live, to their headlining arena tour with Teenage Fanclub and That Dog supporting them. Their stint touring with Lush resulted in a verse written about Matt Sharp's relentless flirting on the song Lady Killers.
Blondie was with me for a summer. He flirted like a maniac, but I wouldn't bite.
Not coming off particularly well in the words of Mickey Bereni.
Oh God, the boy had such an ego. He liked to talk about himself all day and all night.
Though still better than Anthony Kiedis in verse 2.
So he talks for hours about his sensitive soul, and his favourite subject is sex.
By the end of the tour, Weezer were exhausted. Midway through, Cuomo had corrective surgery on his left leg, which was 2 inches shorter than the other. The lengthening procedure was incredibly painful and left him with limited mobility while it healed. He also found it hard to write on tour, furthering his suspicions that he was an untalented hack, that Blue was a fluke. Alongside this, tensions had risen within the band, after having to deal with Cuomo's asocial habits and increasing megalomania. So instead of following up their million-seller straight away, his bandmates occupied themselves with side projects, and Cuomo went to Harvard. I had rockstar dreams from 8 or 9, almost non-stop. I thought it was going to be like being a god on Earth, having as many women as you want, whenever you want them, having superpowers, being incredibly wealthy, never doing laundry. Instead, I found myself in the dead of winter in Boston, with a long beard, no friends, and a bum leg. It was pretty disillusioning. Follow-up, The Diaristic Pinkerton, appeared in September 1996, but is a story for another time. The Blue album was hugely influential. It changed the way 90s modern rock radio sounded, transforming the Vogue from often dour grunge heavyweights to a procession of alt-rock one-hit wonders in the mold of the Sweater Song and Buddy Holly. Crunchy, sticky novelties with goofy videos.
She's loved, she's loved, she's loved. She might be dead. It was good living with you. I'm popular. I'm a quarterback. Without the all. He's going the distance. He's going for speed. I smell sex and candy here. Wanna put my tender heart in a blender, watch it spin around to a beautiful oblivion. I'm not sick, but I'm not well. Please tell me why.
And while the haters were off base by calling them industry plants, the band's uncool Revenge of the Nerds image that brought them so much derision from the hipper-than-thou crowd worked heavily in their favour in the real world. Weezer's early fanbase were children, their first steps in music appreciation, and when they grew up, formed nerdy, pop culture obsessed power pop and pop punk bands.
Make me free. I feel like I'm stuck in. Stand by me. Listen to Iron Maiden, baby, will you be? Heavy metal and Lord is how we were raised. Maiden and priest were the gods that we praise. She likes the God smacking, I like Agent Orange. Swing, swing, swing from the table side. My heart is crushed.
My name is Freddy Krueger. I got the MC blues.
In the dark, with smiles on our faces. I fell asleep watching Veronica Mars again.
I'm just a constant headache, a dead pet device.
My ex, it'll help me understand exactly who I am.
Punk rock renaissance man Jeff Rosenstock would go even further, attributing its sound ahead of Pinkerton's as a defining influence on Midwest emo.
I got so tired of discussing my future. I started avoiding the people I love.
I think great songs stand the test of time, and this record has 10 of them, which is no small feat. I think this record mixed some new elements into punk that transformed it forever, most notably their clean guitar arpeggios and melodies which inspired a lot of twinkly emo bands forevermore. I can't picture modern emo if Only in Dreams hadn't existed.
With a head shake. Never felt like this, never felt like.
You could connect the dots and point to Rivers Cuomo and Weezer's acceptance into the mainstream as the foundations for the nerd takeover of popular culture. The age of Sheldon Cooper, the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Geek Chic, and some of the more hateful aspects of that landscape are baked into the Blue album, and now reveal that the Revenge of the Nerds headlines were a bit too prescient. Some of those that were shoved into lockers are the same that review bombed Star Wars. Within Pitchfork's revised Best 90s Songs list, Gabriel Chatan ponders the terms of Cuomo's possible deal with the devil. Can you imagine? After splurging a career's worth of chops and goodwill in one burst, you're condemned to walk an earth where your possessive juvenile songwriting drifts further from acceptability, while new generations relentlessly clown your Toto covers as virgin music. As a kid, Cuomo dreamt of being Ace Frehley. Forming Weezer, he aspired to be Nirvana, and in part, he achieved that. They sold 15 million copies of Blue, created some stunningly intimate human music, saved the guitar solo, and left a trail of influence in their wake. But for most, Weezer are a meme band, and that's the real heartbreaker. Thanks for watching. Do you think Weezer has aged poorly? Would you make that deal? Comment down below. If you like this video, like, subscribe, and why don't you also do me a favour and share it with a couple of people. It really does help. As always, I'd like to shout out this month's new top tier supporter over on Patreon, Marissa Spalding. And thanks to everyone else that supports me. I'll see you in several weeks' time for something you can move to.